You might be wondering, what exactly is a perfect 10 comic? Well, that's easy. A comic is a perfect 10 when... I felt like I've been overcritical, and I just wanted to show that there are comics that I think are really good that are coming out now. When I thought about what to show you for my idea of a perfect 10, obvious things came to mind, such as Watchmen by Alan Moore, of course, the greatest graphic novel of all time, Bone by Jeff Smith, Civil War by Mark Millar and Steve McNiven. These graphic novels are established. People in the comic world know about them, and they regard them as some of the best graphic novels out there. I wanted to find issues that are current, that are ongoing right now, that are perfect 10s that you should go and pick up yourself. And there were the obvious ones like The Ambassadors by Mark Millar, Kaya by Wes Craig, Captain America by J. Michael Straczynski is really good, and Daredevil by Saladin Ahmed and Aaron Kuder, which surprised me because I'm normally not the biggest fan of Saladin Ahmed. But even those comics that are coming out now are by really established creators, A-list creators that people know of. But what about the comics that are coming out by independent writers and independent artists that are just as good? And I couldn't decide between these two, so we're doing them both. The first one I've got here is Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees by Patrick Horvath. He wrote this, he drew it, and he colored it. This dude's a machine, and all of it is so beautifully done. When you see this cover, you see a big, lovable bear dragging a bloody sack behind her, and you think, well, okay, this is going to be one of those stories where they have super cute animals doing super evil stuff, and it's supposed to be fresh because there's such a contrast between those two things. But it's not. This is not only as nostalgic and comforting as The Fox and the Hound, it is also a cold-blooded serial killer story that holds its own against other serial killer stories. You open this comic up and you feel so welcome. You feel so comforted by everything on these pages. It feels like coming home. And within the first 5 pages of this story, you feel like you've lived here. You feel like you know the characters and you can predict what they're going to do, and you've been here your whole life. And then it very quickly gets into the murdering, which we knew was going to happen. It's not a big surprise. And I don't want to spoil it for you. You really should go out and buy this for yourself. If you love comics as an art form, you should have this comic. The way this murder is written, the characterization of it, the flavors, all the emotions that you get from it feel so tangible. Every moment lasts exactly as long as it should. Every moment feels purposeful. It's well placed. It's artistic and it's poetic, but it's not cramming it down your throat. It's just a work of art. It's truly a work of art. And not only do you feel so familiar and so comforted by this story automatically, it also raises questions that you actually want to find the answers to. There's plenty of times when you can tell a comic is just trying to make you ask questions, but you don't care about the answer. It just wants you to be confused. It's supposed to be a cliffhanger, but really you just think, I don't know these things, and I don't need to. But I've got questions after reading this, and I want to know the answers. It's a great cliffhanger. Some of the animals aren't humanoid. Why? And I want to know. I'm not just asking because I think it's a plot hole. I think they're going to get to it, and I think it's going to be a cool answer, and I think it's going to be explored in a really fun, creative way. So I want to know more. I want more! So Patrick Horvath, you knocked this one out of the park. This is a 10. This is what a modern 10 looks like. I'm a sucker for watercolors, but this dude is on his A game. He knows what he's doing. There's not a single panel I saw in this whole issue where I went, you made a mistake. No mistakes. Everything is purposeful, lovingly crafted. I cannot wait for issue 2. I'm definitely going to buy it. The other perfect 10 I wanted to share is Rare Flavors by Ram V and Filipe Andrade. Andrade? I'm sorry. What a work of art! I didn't buy this when it first came out, but then I saw Steve McNiven's Instagram post saying how great it was, and he rarely does that. So I thought, guess I better buy it, and boy was it worth my money! This comic checks a lot of boxes for me personally. It's very rooted in its own history. It feels like they're referencing ancient history, but it's also so modern. They're dragging the then into the now, and they're giving everything that's happening in this story importance because it's connected to things that happened then. But it's not just drowning in the past. It's not just some period piece. It's very modern. It's very slick. It's just enough history to let you know that these things that are happening are important. The main character, we're all nerds here, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. When David Tennant was Doctor Who, whenever he would look at another character, that character would feel seen. They'd feel fully understood. It was as if he could see right through their soul, and he knew everything they were going through, and he was just there with them on the same level. David Tennant is the best. This character has that same effect. This main character that we follow around for this story feels as if he sees everything. He sees every detail about every person, and he documents the importance of every single thing that's happened to everybody. He understands. He has collected all this data, and it affects the way that he interacts with the world around him, but he's so calm about it. He's just the most collected, capable guy. And we know that he's really, really, really old, which helps, but if he's talking to you in this comic, he sees you and he understands you. He gets you on a deeper level that most people won't get you on. And you also know, as we read this story, that this guy is very cunning and he might be a little bit malicious, but he's also so easy to trust. It's so easy to trust that he knows what he's doing, and you should just do it too. And that is some great writing to get a character that well crafted and that convincing. I honestly don't know how I feel about this character because I felt so many ways and I can't choose one of the ways. The dialogue is sometimes very poetic, sometimes very blunt, sometimes referencing certain genres, but really what we can see Ram V doing here is using a bunch of tools as a writer. He's got poetic language as a tool, blunt language as a tool, and he's using them in tandem with each other to create this colorful canvas where he's using all of his tools, no more than they should be used, but just enough that each one feels... I'm having a hard time putting it in words, but just trust me when I say that this writer knows what he's doing. It's really good. It's really good. There's also these excerpts that he does throughout the series. I've read the first 2 issues so far, but in the first issue there is an excerpt where he describes a recipe. And it feels very Wes Anderson. It feels like a Wes Anderson kind of cutaway, or I guess more appropriately it feels like a Chelsea Kane kind of cutaway, because she's written a bunch of comics that have that similar style as Wes Anderson. And I love Wes Anderson and Chelsea Kane. I think they're both great. I love that tone. It's very modern. It's fresh. It's colorful. It's flavorful. It really makes the world feel complete. It makes it feel like you're stepping into the world of the story. And exactly how the main character sees people in the story, he also sees things and history that way. And as you're reading, as you're seeing through his eyes throughout this book, it's like you're reteaching yourself how to see the beauty in common things. Common things you see every day, how it can be beautiful and meaningful. And it's really refreshing because so many comics out there will try to say, this is important because I said so. And it just doesn't do anything for you. But this comic is just reminding you. It's a gentle reminder that you already knew how beautiful life was and how flavorful things could be. You just forgot. So come back. Remind yourself. It's really a breath of fresh air. And just like Beneath the Trees, this one leaves me with cliffhangers that I care about. I want to know who these 2 detectives are. I want to know if they're human or not, because it kind of seems like they're not, but it hasn't told us, hey, they're not human. It just kind of gives us clues. And I want to know why the main character isn't at the premiere at the end of the issue. And the art, although it is not my favorite style, you know, I'm a classic Western comic book reader. I like my Steve McNivens. I like my David Finch. I like my Alex Ross. I like my Joe Quesada. I like my David Mazzucchelli. I like my Frank Miller. I like my Jim Lee. I like my... The list goes on. It's consistent, and there's choices being made here. It's not just the artist did the best of their ability, and it's not very detailed, but it's what they could do. It's the artist chose to give us these details and accent these parts of anatomy consistently, and there's a lot of emotion to it. All the movement feels there. Nothing is stiff. So although it isn't my absolute favorite style, it is still a style, and it is a solid style, and it absolutely gives the storytelling a strong foundation. It makes it really accessible, and it creates an aesthetic. It's a strong aesthetic. So this is another 10, and this is coming out now. You can go buy issue 3, which is coming out in a couple weeks here. I know I'm going to be buying issue 3. So if you were wondering what a 10 looks like, it looks like these. These are comics that you should have in your collection if you are a comic collector. 100% I'm on board with wherever these series take us. Have you already read these issues? What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Today's question comes from Amatav_not, and he says, I like the X-Men, but there are so many comics about the X-Men, I don't know where to start. If I know next to nothing about the X-Men, what comic should I start with? Good question. There's way too many X-Men comics out there. Are you listening, Marvel? One of my absolute favorite X-Men comics of all time is Joss Whedon and John Cassaday's run on Astonishing X-Men. Gorgeous art, super colorful writing, tons of respect for the history of the X-Men, but also so much new stuff. Beautiful dialogue, important developments in the lives of the X-Men. There is a little bit of stuff you have to know before you read this, but it's okay. Just watch a YouTube video like this one. That's where I would start with the X-Men. Yeah.